let's go through the letters a little bit one more time, just to get the sound down, and we'll talk a little bit about the meaning. We're going to go through, as we do this, the Sophite letters as well. Would somebody mind holding open that page that has the ending letters, the final form letters, the Sophite letters on it, and hold it up for the camera? I think it's like page 5 or something like that in your booklet, in your workbook.
You mean the Handy Hebrew alphabet?
No. There you go. John's got it.
Oh, okay, the Sophites, okay.
Sophites. Anybody's fine. Just hold it up so the camera can see it for us, please, and we can get zoom in on that. So this is the page that's going to have the Sophite letters on it, right? The ending letters on it. And you can remember which letters are the ending letters by the acronym. Did I move this a little bit? By the acronym MAN-SAPACH. MAN-SAPACH. Are you ready? Man-SAPACH. It's an acronym, so we do that. So those are the 5 final form letters, the 5 Sophite letters, Man-SAPACH. If any of these letters come at the end of the word, like the hoof did here, right? Like the kaf did here, it's going to be in its final form. So that page in your handout or in your workbook will be able to kind of help you along with that. And again, the workbooks that we passed out and we shipped out were, it's filled with all kinds of information for you. We're not going to go over everything that's in the workbook. It's for you, for your reference, for your information, so that you'd be able to go back and study over time. As you pray, as you look in the Torah, etc., etc. So let's do a quick run through of the letters, and then we can close for tonight. Should we go in reverse order? No, that's mean, right? Okay, we'll go straight ways. All right, what's the first letter? Kuf. Very good, John. Aleph. Aleph is the first letter.
Oh, you're going back to the whole alphabet.
Yes.
The whole alphabet.
The whole alphabet. Because after this point, we're not going to be doing so much deep teaching. It's going to be a lot more practical. So let's cap this off here. Aleph, it's a silent letter. Makes the sound like whatever value you put with it. And it has a numerical value of 1, which represents God. And its meaning and its graphic design also represent God, right? This is you. Or this is God, this is you, this is the Torah. 2. Okay. Second letter is the bait, right? Bait makes a sound like a B. Unless it doesn't have a dagesh, then it makes it sound like a V. Okay? Has a numerical value of 2. Representing 2 people in the house, a husband and wife in the house. It's shaped like a house, and it means a house. Third letter is the gimel. The gimel makes it sound like a G, like a G, like in gorilla, gorilla, or as in grab. It's got the graphic design of a person running forward to give charity. It means gomel, to give, bountifully give, has a numerical value of 3, and all of the symbolism that goes along with the 3.
Isn't there it's related to camel?
Gimel is also a camel, right.
The word means camel.
The word means camel, but so does gomel mean to give. And in a similar way, a camel is for getting something from one place to another over a long distance,
It's
right?
a beast of burden it gives.
right. It gives over a great distance. Fourth letter is the dalet. The gimel has 3. That's like the patriarchs. The dalet makes it sound like a D, like in dog or in dad. Remember to look again for this little yud on the top right, so as not to confuse it with the resh. And there's a disambiguation page somewhere in your workbook as well that will help you with lots of little tips so that you can remember this is dalet and this is resh, and everything else that looks the same.
One page past the Sophite page.
Okay. The dalet has a numerical value of 4. 3 papas, 4 mamas, 3 patriarchs, 4 matriarchs. There's only 3 people in Judaism who are called Avinu, our father, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And the 4 matriarchs, 4 women that we call Ima, mommy, mother, is Sarah, Sarah, Rivka, Rebecca, Rachel, Rachel, and Leah. So the dalet represents receiving, and the meaning of the dalet is a poor person who's ready to receive. Right? The fifth letter is the hey. Hey makes a sound like an H. Ha, it's the light letter. Every letter when you begin saying it begins with the hey. When you begin writing it, it begins with the yud. This is the bina, the understanding, right? It's the expansion of the yud, we're giving it length and breadth. The development of this of the seed, right? Represents our window up to God through here, or God forbid what happens below if we focus down. I heard a cow can't look up, right? So if you ask a cow what color is the sky, it's like, what sky? So we want to look up, right? Into the green. In Achashverosh's party, right, in the Esther story, he had all kinds of beautiful stuff. He had gold hidden under silver on the couch so that people would constantly be looking down like this and not looking up to heaven, right? So this is our window to look up to heaven. It's the way the world was created. That's the hay. Numerical value of 5 with the hay, that's Torah. Torah, the God made the world through the Torah. Sixth letter is the Vav. Vav means connection. Comes from a high place and goes down to a low place. It makes the sound like a V as in Victor. And we talked a little bit last week, and this isn't a day for vowels, but if it's got a dagesh in it, it makes it sound like a U, like in boot. Or if it's got a dot on top, it makes it sound like a O, like in goal. Okay? But by itself, it's a V. V sound. Has a numerical value of 6 relating to the oral law. This is the transmission of God's word to us. We can't fully understand the Bible without the interpretation of the sages of Moshe Rabbeinu. Otherwise, it's very difficult for us to understand. For example, God says, I want you to put totafot in between your eyes, right? When we say the Shema, it's like you should bind it for a sign on your hand, and it should be for totafot, between your eyes. And we say frontlets. What is a frontlet? You need Moshe to tell you this is tefillin, right? It's a black box, it's a cube, it's a square, it's got leather straps. Similarly on Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, God tells us to take the 4 kinds, right? A citrus fruit, a palm branch, and 2 other things. How are we supposed to know what those things are? God tells us to rest on Shabbat and not to work on Shabbat, on the Sabbath. How are we supposed to know what the definition of rest or work is, right? Does it mean lifting heavy things? Can I work out on Shabbat? That comes through Moses' explanation to us. That's the Vav, representing the oral law. And the nail, which connects, the connector, connecting us to God. The 7th letter is the Zayin. Zayin makes it sound like a Z, like in zoo. It's a feminine letter. It's like the crown. The woman of valor is the crown of her husband. And we did this last week, but we have a second or two here. We can do it this week. If you were to draw it in the stam. Right? Zayin is a crowned letter, one of the 7 letters that has crowns on it. Tagim. Makes it sound like a Z. It's got the number 7. And it's like a sword, right? A sword that you could use for good or not so good, right? That's the Zayin. 8th letter is the Chet. Chet makes a sound we don't have in English. It's like Chanukah or Chen, grace. Chen means grace. Or Chochma. Chochma means wisdom. In fact, they say Chen, grace, is an acronym for Chochma Nisuteret, right? The hidden wisdom, the secrets. That's what they call Kabbalah. Chet is the numerical value of 8. Very messianic number relating to all of the different breakthroughs that we have in our life. Moving us to a new level, a new layer, a new reality. And it's the symbolism of the man and the wife under the chuppah. We'll draw it in the stam here. All right, that's the Chet as you'll find it in a Torah scroll. It's the husband, the Vav, and the wife, the Zayin, together under the chuppah. That's the Chet, the symbolism, the meaning of the Chet. The 9th letter is the Tet, Tes. It looks like, makes it sound like a T. It's got the numerical value of 9. It looks like a serpent, and it spells the word good, right? So good can be, a little too much good is not so good, right? Unless it's godly good, then no amount of good is enough. And there's the Yud. The Yud is the little letter. It's just a dot. Hangs up on top. It floats up in the air. Represents God's wisdom. It's got the numerical value of 10. Makes a sound like a yo-yo, like Y, like in yo-yo. Like in Jerusalem. Often it changes into a J when they translate it into, anglicize it into English. Yud represents God's name, because God's name begins with the Yud. Yud represents Chokmah, God's wisdom. And again, every letter when you begin spelling it begins with the Yud on top, right? Every letter is going to begin in that top left corner. So that's the Yud, 10th letter. That was last week. This week we covered Chaf, Kaf. This makes a sound like Ch, like in kind of like in Hanukkah or in Tanakh. But if it's got a hard dagesh in it, it's hard like K, like in cat or in kangaroo. Got the numerical value of 20, representing God's 10 and our 10. It means like keter, like crown, or it's got the imagery, the symbolism of a keter, of a crown, right? Understanding that God's kingship is above us. And it means like hand, kapayim, hands, because we can connect to God by understanding His crown, really. That's the Kaf, or the Chaf. The next letter is the Lamed. Lamed makes a sound like an L. It's got the numerical value of 30, which is when you're supposed to go into the teaching ministry. It means, Lamed means a teacher. And it's got the graphic design of a Vav on top of a Chaf. God's energy coming from a very high place, and then processing with us, right? It comes from a very high place, and then we have it in our mind, and then we bring it all the way down to our feet. This is like the idea of downloading and installing, right? That's the Lamed. The Mem looks like that. The Mem's got a final form too, by the way, real quick, since we didn't do the final form for the Chaf. That's the final form for the Chaf or Kaf. The Mem's got a final form as well. Mem makes a sound like a M. It looks like a womb. It's got the numerical value of 40, hinting to transformation. And it's got the final form representing Moses and then Mashiach. And there's the Nun. The Nun also has a final form. Nun makes a sound like an N, has a numerical value of 50, representing the 50 gates of impurity or the 50 gates of wisdom. It has the shape of graphic design of energy, God's energy coming from a very high place and going down to a very, very low place. Or if we can bend ourselves to God's will, then we can catch God's energy down here and not let it fall down to the depths of impurity. That's the Nun. And we said it's related to the word Chanun, gracious one, right? This whole process works because of God's graciousness. Next letter we covered was the Samech. The Samech is a circle, makes a sound like an S. It's got the numerical value of 60, which is the number of nullification. The meaning of the graphic design, is like a ring, like a wedding ring, or like the chuppah, or the rings that the wife makes around the husband under the chuppah. So it represents support, which interestingly enough is also the name. Samech means support, right? So make noflim, to support those who fall. The next letter that we covered, what was the next letter we covered? Ayin. Ayin was the next letter that we covered. Ayin is the second silent letter. It makes a sound like whatever vowel that you add to it. It represents your eyes. The word ayin means eye. And again, it represents the world. So it could be concealment, God's concealing himself, or we can see God through the concealment, and that again depends on our perspective. That's the ayin. Oh, and it has the numerical value of 70. Next.
70, you said.
70, 70. The next letter down the line is the Pei. or the Fe. Did I, no, we're good. The Pei also has a final form. Kind of looks like the Chaf. Now, right now, this is a Fe, because it doesn't have a Dagish in it, right? It doesn't have a dot in the middle. So it's soft. If you put the dot in it, it becomes hard. Now it's Pei. It's got the numerical value of 80, representing strength, knowing that your strength comes from God. And it's got the graphic design of like a mouth, right? Our strength comes through us using God's words, speaking the words of His Torah, which is why it's so important to learn Hebrew. Next, we cover the tzadi. The tzadi is, makes a TZ sound, kind of like in cats, or in Yahtzee, or in, I'll stop right there. Has a numerical value of 90, indicating permanence. Has the graphic design of a nun holding on to the yud, right? And that's how we become tzaddik, which is the meaning of tzadi, which means righteous. We become righteous by carrying God's name with us at all times and remembering God at all times. Next letter we covered was the kuf. The kuf is like a monkey.
Oh, there's a final for
Tzadi?
Sadi.
We wrote it.
Oh, you did?
We did. I'll write it again for you though.
I guess I was writing and I missed it.
Oh, okay. We're just doing a quick review here at the end. So, regular tzadi, sofit tzadi, final form tzadi. This is the kuf. Kuf makes it sound like a K. It's got the numerical value of 100. It's one of the letters of falsehood. Kind of looks like a hey, but not really. And it's related to sheker, which is falsehood, but we can turn it into keresh by making it upright, right? Using it for God's work in the holy temple. That's how we can turn the kuf to something more holy.
What was the meaning?
The meaning of kuf is like a monkey. Kind of human, but not quite, right? And we can make it, I don't know if you can make a monkey a human, that's probably weird. But we can make our inner animal, right? We can make our inner monkey noble, human, right? By setting it upright, specifically by staying away from falsehood, right? And using everything that we have for the service of God. Resh was the next letter. Resh makes a sound like an R. Again, the Resh looks very similar to the Dalet. Don't get confused. This is a Resh. This is a Dalet because the Dalet's got the little Yud on the top, right? Resh makes a sound like an R. This is a Resh. It makes a sound like an R. It's got the numerical value of 200. I want more and more. Resh could mean Rasha, a wicked person, or it could mean Rosh, the head, right? And that depends on if we have that Yud that the Dalet had. If we can have that Yud, God's name, with us, then it will be, then we could be the head and not the tail. The Shin. Gotta get a little light there. Here we go. That was just terrible. Now I have to redo it. The Shin makes a sound like a SH if the dot is up here. And if the dot's not up there, but it's over here on the left, it makes a sound like a sin, like s, like in snake or in silence. Has a numerical value of 300, absolute perfection. Represents the 3 patriarchs, or when you draw it with the 4, or if you engrave it with the 3, the 4 matriarchs. Represents God's connection with us. It represents God's name, Kel Shaddai, right? We had this shin on all of the mezuzahs, right? We have this letter shin because it stands for God's name that we just said, Kel Shaddai. And the shin is closely related to the word shana, year, and mishnah, repetition, because it's through repetition year after year that we get absolute perfection, mastery, right? Mastery. And then the final letter was the tav. The tav, again, makes it sound like a T, like in Tom, or in anything else that starts with a T. Teapot. If it has a, in the Sephardic dialect, it's always a T no matter what. In the Sephardic dialect, it's always a T no matter what. In the Ashkenazi, that's a terrible Dagish. If it has a Dagish, it's a hard T like in Torah. Like in Torah, it's a hard T like in Torah with a Dagish. But if it didn't have the dagesh, it would be more like Sora, right? Okay. So Tav makes it sound like a T. All the time in Ashkenazi land, or I'm sorry, all the time in Sephardic land, and some of the time in Ashkenazic land. It has the graphic design of feet, right? Standing on 2 feet because we have to humble ourselves before God. It's got the numerical value of 400. Fighting the forces of impurity by bringing God's Torah into our lives, recognizing that we are at His feet, we are learning at His feet, and by seeing God in everything we do, we can actually elevate the forces of impurity of this world, make something good out of this world, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. And Tav has the idea of ownership, right? The Torah is ours. What are you going to do with it? Bezrat Hashem, now you'll have a little bit more of a firmer grasp with the letters, so you won't be so confused when you look at the Torah, or the liturgy, or the Siddur, or anything like that. And with God's help, next week we will cover vowels. So you'll be able to say, okay, now this is a Tav, but this makes it sound like a Ta, or this makes it sound like a T, or this makes it sound like a Te, okay? And so on and so forth. We'll do all that next week. We'll cover the vowels. Next week will be a little bit fun. We're going to get a bunch of different words up here. We're going to have you spelling all kinds of stuff, so stay with us there. I think that's it. You think we covered everything?
Amen.
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. So we'll just close with one more quick word of prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, we are so grateful for your word. Thank you for helping us to learn your language. May we do good things with it. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.
Amen.
Laila Tov.